Now, I'm a relative newcomer to Milton Keynes and to the Fawcett Society, but when this event was being proposed, I came across the details of the project that the Fawcett Society had put together in 2017-18 and the exhibition about women who made Milton Keynes. I, in my childhood, actually was spent a number of years in a new town in Cumbernauld, and so it's interesting for me to do the comparison between the two places, and I think Milton Keynes comes out head and shoulders above. So when I discovered about the actual exhibition, I tried to track down some information about it and discovered that in fact the archives had been passed to the City Discovery Centre that Noelle comes from and was talking about the medieval women there. So 7 women from the Fawcett Society actually interviewed 10 women who had important influences in the development of the early development of Milton Keynes, and in fact have a continuing legacy. I asked Catherine Mcintyre, who is the archivist at the CDC, if she would put together a short video introducing the project, and she has done that, and so hopefully we will be able to present that now.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm the archivist at Milton Keynes City Discovery Centre, which is based at Bradwell Abbey. When the Milton Keynes group of the Fawcett Society were undertaking their project to create an exhibition that highlighted some of the women involved in the development of Milton Keynes New Town, they used the archive and reference library here for some of their research. And when they were coming to the end of that project, they were looking for a home for the fuller biographies of the women who were featured in their exhibition. I was really pleased when they offered that collection to us here at the City Discovery Centre. Our collections focus on the development of the new town. The reference and library collection contains published materials, so things like books and journals and reports and ephemeral material like marketing stuff and leaflets as well. The archive collections contain unique documents, so things like correspondence, minutes, memoranda, photographs and research notes, things like that. However, much of the contribution of women to the development of Milton Keynes is quite hidden and difficult to find. The official records are dominated by men, so the lineup of the first board of the Development Corporation had only one woman on it. The chairman was a man, the general manager and all the chief officers were men. So to have a collection that highlights some of the women significant in making our city what it is today was, I felt, very important. Demonstrating the contribution of women allows us to have a much fuller picture of our history and provides representation that will hopefully inspire others to continue the good work. The biographies are digital, which means we can make them available via our online catalogue. So if you're interested in exploring the biographies, then head to our online catalogue website. The Women Who Made MK collection is highlighted on the homepage, so just click on the image to be taken through to the catalogue, where you can then click on the person you're interested in, and then you'll be taken through to their PDF biography.
If you're looking to further explore the women featured in the collection, we also hold material relating to some of the projects they undertook. For example, Deidre Batista was involved in the One World quilt project. The quilt was made by local community groups on the theme of One World to promote unity. It hangs in the Guildhall at Christ the Cornerstone Church, but has toured the UK and Ireland, with community groups and schools in various towns and cities coming together to make their own quilts on their own themes. We also have an archive of planning documents from the theatre project, which Teresa Collard helped bring to Milton Keynes. Lots of maps and promotional material relating to the Redways, an idea that Margaret Durbridge was involved in, and early leaflets about the hospice at Willen, which Marjorie Reed co-founded.
Two of the women who were involved in the project are with us this afternoon, and they are Barbara Mayer and Joan Swan, and they interviewed Teresa Collard. Barbara conducted that interview, and Joan interviewed Dr. Marjorie Reed, who was the co-founder of the hospice. I would like to ask them to introduce themselves, and I have a question for them in terms of which of the innovations that these women has had most impact on your life and either your family life or your professional life here in Milton Keynes. Barbara.
Well, I was thinking I'd like to let Joan go first, because so I'm happy to take a back seat.
I don't mind who goes first. By the way, there is also Sheila present, and Sheila was also involved in that project. Yeah, I didn't interview Marjorie because sadly she's died, but I did interview members of her family and spoke to other people in the hospice, Willen Hospice, which Marjorie co-founded. Partly for that reason, if I were to choose something inspirational, it would actually be Marjorie's work on the hospice, because I do know now a little bit about the history. I've got no connection to the hospice otherwise, but I think it's been hugely important to the city. It was launched at the very beginning of the hospice movement in Britain in 1974, when the idea was launched by Marjorie Reed and her co-founder, a nurse called Dorothy Gell. And we can say it revolutionized palliative care in the new city. I think it was and is also held in great affection in the city. So if you think about all the fundraising that goes on, all the volunteering in the shops and everything, and very positive press coverage. So I think it has a place in the heart of the city. What it means, on what their work and the hospice means to me then, the first point would be the power of an idea. So Marjorie and Dorothy had this initial idea, like I said, in 1974. Hospice didn't open until 81. It took a long time to get it to fruition, but it was conceived at a very early point. And Dorothy sadly died. So Marjorie was the one who took it to fruition and became the first medical director of the hospice. And she had a huge number of obstacles to overcome. They had no money, there was no building, there was no site for a building. It was a new idea, and I'd sell it to people. Not everybody welcomed the idea. Some GPs found it rather a threat to their work in supporting people who were dying. But Marjorie carried it off due to, I guess, belief in herself and belief in the idea and sheer hard work. So she knew it was important. She knew it was the right moment. The hospice movement was starting to take off. And she pushed and she pushed and she encouraged and she persuaded against all odds sometimes and got it done. And that idea of having an idea, believing in an idea, really working at it and bringing it to fruition, that was something that I found inspirational in Marjorie's work, both personally and professionally, in fact. The second thing I found inspirational was the power of collaboration. So the hospice and its development owed, like I say, much to Marjorie's idea, but it happened because other people believed in it and wanted it to happen and devoted huge amounts of time and energy to it. And lots of those people were women. In fact, I think the majority of them were women who worked together. When I say worked together, they did anything and everything So members of the governing board found themselves pitching in and doing hospice laundry and serving tea to patients, because at that point there weren't enough staff and there wasn't the money, and so on and so on. They had funding crises throughout the development of the hospice until it finally got properly established. If you look back through press reports, you will see, you know, the hospice was in crisis again. There was no money. So all these women and some men were rallying around doing practical things, but also getting actively involved in promoting the idea of the hospice. And that idea, it's a cliche, but the power of women working together and collaborating and just pitching in and just getting down to it and just doing it is the second main thing that I found really inspiring. And that's why I chose the hospice and Marjorie Reid as my inspirational person. So it is your turn now, Barbara.
Thank you, Joan. And I will now pass the same question to Barbara.
Well, I might slightly subvert it a little, but like Joan, I would have emphasized collaboration. I think that characterized a lot of the women. They were not putting themselves forward as individuals. They were rallying a group of people to achieve something. And because Milton Keynes was a young city, it had existed, of course, as a collection of towns and villages, but it was a young city. There was an opportunity for the voluntary sector and individual volunteers to make a huge difference to how the infrastructure of the city developed. So I think that notion of collaboration and voluntary action was really key to so many of the things that the women did, including setting up Citizens Advice Bureau, for example. But I hope Sheila will forgive me if I actually choose Deidre Batista as someone to foreground. She is one of the few women of the 10 who are still alive. There's about 3 or maybe 4 of them who are still alive now. And Deidre was inspirational in the sense of this grassroots action that she was involved with, but also because she had affected the visual landscape of Milton Keynes in a way that I've continued to appreciate and enjoy. She was responsible, as you saw in the film there, for the One World quilt, which I think is an inspirational activity where the patchwork comes together. And that was partly the way in which I know the planners of today's event were conceiving of all the contributions today. So organising a patchwork was one of the undertakings that Deidre did. The other, which people may not be aware of, you may not know her name, she organised the medicine wheel, the stone circle that's near Willen Lake, which again it's one of those sort of mystical places within Milton Keynes that actually is of relatively recent vintage, but you would think that it was part of the infrastructure of the city. People will go to these places and find inspiration in them, but you had to have a vision to see the potential of that site for what Deidre made of it. Deidre and her co-workers, co-activists. And she worked internationally. So the idea of the One World quilt was that people were coming from various community groups representing different sectors of the community. But she also worked for the Stone Circle with Native American people who were taking part in an international world run and who were coming through Milton Keynes. So it seemed for me to encapsulate so many things: the grassroots movement, the collaboration, the internationalism, and the fact that Milton Keynes was a place where you could achieve those things. So I think Deidre would be my woman of the day.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much.